right, we are back in the lab on part 2 of our beta test at the Free Play Podcast Trivia. We're doing arcade trivia. We have Austin, we have Josh, we have Chris. Current score, Austin 7, Josh 9, Chris 8. Very close. We've been talking, we've been having fun. We're just kind of learning about these games, finding new facts that we didn't know before, and then discussing them after we learn new things. I think so far y'all have been stumped almost 8 times. It gets kind of murky. We've had some kind of half answers.
I am very happy with that batting average.
But yeah, so far it's been pretty impressive. We've been able to get the answers on most of them. So that's awesome. I thought I was making it too hard, and I got the extra hard deck.
It's like you said, you know it or you don't.
Right. Well, that's trivia. I mean, it's kind of fun too, because like some of the stuff that we were doing in that first part was old arcade like lore, which is probably not even true. Like the kid dying playing Berserk,
right.
Probably not true, but
I always think those stories are dubious. Like you hear about someone playing for 50 hours and keeling over, and it's just like, everybody I know who's ever gone to college has spent 50 hours up or something like that at some point in their life.
Well, Chris says that's like an average weekend for him, so he's like...
He's probably not lying there,
he can't trust. All right, so we're going to dive back in. I held them back kind of as hard. Some of them might be gimmies. We're going to see how it goes. So this requires you to know a Japanese word. There's one of 2 companies. This famous arcade company.
Sumimasen.
No, I don't actually know what that is.
That's every Japanese word I know.
I'm going to give you the Japanese word.
Excuse me.
This company was making this Japanese word. It's called Hanafunda. And it's a type of product, and it's a famous arcade company.
Nintendo.
Correct.
They made Hanafuda cards.
Is that what it's Hanafuda? That's how you pronounce it. All right. Yeah. So yeah, it's card. It's a certain type of card. Everyone knows the playing card. So I was trying to put an interesting little twist on the old Nintendo. Started out making playing cards like in the 1800s or whatever, and then eventually made Mario.
So like Hanafuda is a game. I'm not 100% sure exactly how it works, but basically each card has kind of parts of a poem, and you're trying to lay them out in a certain way to build the poem.
Whoa.
If I remember correctly.
And that's apparently where Nintendo started.
That's deep. Yeah, with connections to Yakuza gambling dens. So.
Right.
But I'll never think about the Yakuza the same again after like picking up all the Japanese players in their accidental business casual, and they're laughing about how they look like the Yakuza.
Well, yeah, so Chris meanly tricked some Japanese people into dressing up. No, I'm just kidding. But for our Super Turbo tournament, we had the Japanese players come out, and they all dressed really nicely, because Chris kind of...
Well, they wanted to go to a steak restaurant, and while they were in Dallas, so we picked a steak, me and Sean Crane picked a steak restaurant that was high-end enough that they needed to dress in business casual. We were trying to explain to them what business casual was, and then voila... They think that they need to be in business casual literally their entire trip, and then they're laughing about how they look like the Yakuza when they get off the plane.
And Chris picks them up in a big, long black van, and they all hop in. All right, so let's get back to the cards.
Yeah, so they actually recently started making them again. You can buy... It's not heavily advertised, but I think you can buy them online.
Are they made by Nintendo?
Yeah.
What kind of cards are they?
The Hanafuda cards.
And what do they do? What do they do?
You make a poem or something.
Yeah. There's a particular game that you play with them, and you have to just... It's kind of like, again, I don't 100%, I've never played it, but from what I understand, it's basically each card has different parts of a poem, and you're trying to lay them out in a way to where you're actually building the poem.
I've been up for 50 straight hours and deliriously tired. So I know the Neo Geos have memory cards as well, right?
Yeah.
Do they still make those somewhere?
You can get them, yeah. They're the old.
That was a weird card segue. Yeah.
There, it's a weird card segue, but you can get the old their PCMCIA interface, and they're like 2 megs, I think, maybe. Yeah.
And they save games, right?
They do. Yeah, I've seen like third party, like ones that you can get that are newer.
Yeah. I need to transfer some save games from
the card triggered that thought in your head. I got you. That's
from Arlington to Richardson to Denton.
So the question that we're not going to ask about Nintendo, because Nintendo, its history is pretty famous, is their famed failed Love Hotel experiment. Like, because they were just a company, right, trying to make money, trying everything before they started making video games. But yeah, they had Love Hotels, mahjong stuff, just your standard conglomerate in Japan trying to figure things out, and then they became the Nintendo we know and love. All right, so this is another company, another name. This company, their original name turned out it was actually trademarked after they'd already selected it. So then they went and they looked and they found on a traditional board game their company name that they went with. Does anyone know this story? I'm trying to. There's some clues here that I could give that would automatically make you say it. But their name came from a board game after their original name had actually been trademarked. The original name being Syzygy.
That was trademarked. Nice.
That was trademarked.
Wow.
But Atari was not.
Nice.
But Atari was not.
So if you go and you look at the original on the Pong boards,
because Atari is a term from Go.
Yeah. So so on the original Pong boards and up for a few years, and I think we have a Pong doubles floating around here. It'll say the original ones say Syzygy instead of Atari.
And Atari is a term from Go.
Yeah.
The card.
It's like a.
Is it a Neo Geo card game?
Right. What it says on the here, it's a traditional board game. I don't actually know what Go. How do you play Go?
So Go it's an abstract game. It's like chess.
Okay.
But like you don't have different pieces, but each player has just a color of stones. You've got a black and white, and you take turns putting them down. And the point is to try to block off your opponent so that you control territory. And basically, at the end, whoever controls the most territory of the board is the winner. And oh god, it's been a while since I've read Hikaru no Go, which is a manga about playing Go. But Atari is like, if I remember correctly, Atari is kind of like the Go version of Checkmate when you have somebody in Atari.
Yeah. According to this, it's the word for a certain play you do in Go. Yeah.
Yeah, or something like that.
So yeah,
I'm not a huge like Go expert or anything. It's been a while.
Syzygy was trademarked by a hippie candle company in California. It's because it's like an astronomy term, and they had used that, and so they went with Atari, which had not apparently been used.
Well, I'm gonna save this story on my Neo Geo memory card and then revisit it when we get to the hidden base at Free Play Lufkin.
Okay, so Atari, they make the first version of Pong. They take it to a bar. They're going to test it. What famously caused the first day to be a total failure? And in fact, as a feature, you'll find it Free Play Arcade.
Josh, somebody spilled beer on it.
That's a good guess.
That is a close guess. It's actually what helps try to prevent that. Tables. They did not put tables next to the game. And so Pong failed because people were trying to play it while they held their beer and they said, this is too hard, this is dumb. They seriously put 2 tables next to their Pong console, and all of a sudden it was a wild hit.
But don't you only need one hand to play Pong?
Maybe they were too much coordination. It seems really really difficult.
Too many beers, perhaps.
Well, and so then famously, the next day it failed because the container they were using to hold quarters filled up and jammed.
Nice.
So that's the story. It went from they didn't have tables to boom, all of a sudden it's jammed. And obviously that is both of those are probably untrue. But that is probably what Nolan Bushnell tells when he goes and he gives those expensive lectures that he gives when he's not doing whatever else he's doing. Okay. Let me see. I got all of these are going to give. There's certain terms that I need to change now that I know how y'all are going to guess.
Chris, Dr. Mario.
Okay. Jeez. I'm sorry. I don't know what. Okay. This is a gimme. This is going to be who can say it first. Which arcade game was made famous? Not really made famous, but was famously featured on Seinfeld.
Austin.
Oh, Josh.
Broder.
Austin was in there first. I don't know how that got through the filter, but that did.
Yes.
Okay. Which enormously popular arcade game is it? The arcade game inspired the art form created by mosaics in public areas?
Chris. Space Invaders.
Correct.
That was Invader, I believe.
Yeah,
And
so
he's featured heavily in the
exit through the gift shop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a popular movie, which was questionable in like every way. Like no one knows what was true in the movie, what was false.
Right.
Which was, I guess, the plan.
Yeah. No, that's sort of
and
part of the movie.
You walk out of there kind of just being like, I don't know
What
what
did
the
I
hell
just watch?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Circling back to Frogger, we at one point had a bounty on the Frogger score, correct? Oh, it was part of Summer Nights.
Yes.
Yeah. So we had the different
So yeah, I can't remember what
tiers.
Costanza's score was.
Right. It was beat
Ridiculous.
Right.
It was above the world record at the time by like orders of magnitude.
Is it even possible? Does
Well,
anyone
it's
know?
been done, I
So-
believe.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
they-
right.
They did
You're
it.
right. You're
They
right.
took the targeted score in that, and someone actually used that as their goal to set, and they finally did it. But it took years.
Right.
Okay. First, and this is disputed, but what's generally considered the first game designed by a woman?
Austin.
Yes.
Centipede.
Correct. So that was
What year was that? Oh.
in 1980. Yeah.
80.
80.
So it's Donna Bailey, famously designed that. Now there's some other women who were obviously programming, making
Yeah,
stuff.
Roberta Williams and for Sierra was making games in that era as well. King's Quest designer.
Yeah, and there were definitely, I mean, it's disputed, but
Yeah.
I mean, certainly a major arcade game that was programmed by a woman, Centipede. And of
really
course,
Who did it?
It was Donna Bailey.
Interesting.
And
Is she still with us?
I
believe
she
she
was,
is.
she was in a news story not long ago.
Nice.
But it's kind of interesting too because arcade games have this long kind of weird history where men are programming trying to make games for women. Like Pac-Man was famously supposed to be female friendly or whatever that means. It's derogatory, but
Yeah, almost pushed aside because I thought it was too kiddie.
well, and then they release Miss Pac-Man, and it's just everyone plays Miss Pac-Man. It turns out that just making a good game is what gets the play.
Right.
And I mean, it didn't matter because it didn't matter if they put a bow and the lead character was a woman. Plenty of men played Miss Pac-Man, but that was the kind of just once they figured out the little issues they had with Pac-Man, that was what pushed it over. Played by women, played by men.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of interesting because the designer of Pac-Man was desperately trying to figure out a game that women would love, and that's how we got Pac-Man, which is not actually that great of a game when you compare it to Miss Pac-Man,
Yeah.
which is just a stud of a game, especially once you add a little speed to it. Okay. Which, jeez.
Too easy.
Yeah.
Chris,
It's already
Dr.
been
Mario.
It's already- Okay. If you're shooting Boar Wars, what game are you playing?
Boar Wars?
Yeah.
Josh, Wiz War?
Wizard of War.
Wizard of War?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, because they're all like,
Well, yeah, so the other three,
they're all
the other ones are
warriors.
Gar Wars, Thor Wars, Boar Wars, and then there's the Warlock. And
Yeah, they're all warriors spelled with an O.
Respect the war lore.
okay, what was the first follow-up Laserdisc game to Dragon's Lair?
Oh, Josh, Space Ace?
Correct. For Dragon's Lair 2, there was Space Ace, which is generally considered the actual sequel, and then Dragon's Lair 2 was... Dragon's
Way
Lair 2...
later, right?
Yeah, well, Dragon's Lair 2 was, in terms of especially arcade generations, it was a whole nother
But
world.
all the Don Bluth animation in every angle of that.
Right. Well, and they are still releasing Dragon's Lair on just about any conceivable format.
That's physical media, yeah.
And the great thing is...
It's such a simple
It
control scheme.
translates,
It does.
you can play it on a DVD remote, and that's completely a perfectly acceptable way to play. It's one of the only ones that emulation has worked pretty well for because it is just you.
It's that Don
pointing
Bluth art. You
Right.
want
Yeah, you're just
access
trying to
the-
look at it. You're not
Right.
trying to really play it because it's a terrible game. I mean,
Sorry, Chris.
no, it's a cool game, but it's pretty
It's terribly hard. It is terribly hard.
It's a brutal.
Yeah.
Okay. This will be whoever can say it fast enough because these questions are not hard enough. What is the sequel to Tron?
Chris, Discs of Tron.
You got it.
There you go.
So, of course, Discs of Tron, famously, they tried to put it on Tron, and they just couldn't get the technology right in time for release. So they shelved it for a second, and then made Discs of Tron, and made it the most expensive game of all time at the time, or something. It was really way up there, and they released it in 1984. So then no one bought it, especially the Monster Environmental version, and Discs of Tron was generally a failure. What's really weird is seeing people at Arlington walk up, because we have Tron right next to Discs of Tron, and people thinking that Discs of Tron is some kind of like knockoff. Like, it's like, I get so irritated because they're like, no, I just want to play Tron. I'm like, no, that's one of the Tron games. It's Discs of Tron. And they're like, meh.
The other thing is the confusion that people have with Discs of Tron regarding the controller, the knob that actually has an up and down mechanic, but not until later in the game. So you have to actually be good at Discs of Tron for that to even be an issue.
Right, yeah. Right. It's insane. Well, yeah.
So this knob is loose. Well, it's actually part of it.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, we've had to take Spy Hunter off the floor because people just
the left trigger is broken on Spy Hunter.
Every single day it gets reported, and they think that there was a post in the community group a while back that was like, Free Play Arlington's not as good because Spy Hunter isn't. And I was like, no, that's how it's supposed to be. And they were like,
you have to earn the special weapons.
It's an achievement, yeah.
And of course, it was the same Spy Hunter we used to have at Richardson. We tried in Arlington, just trying to get people to. I mean, because the soundtrack is a beautiful classic. It's a great game. It's a fun game.
Love that game.
But yeah, that alone is enough to make it so that people think that our games are falling into disrepair.
The really good players would get to the airplane.
Right. Well, if you hear it through your mic, that is our air conditioning accidentally clicking on. We try to keep it off during filming. It feels very nice here in this warm lab warehouse. I believe it will be shut off in a second. But while we're waiting
to the outtakes of the Free Play Arcade podcast, I'm Chris Doe.
I liked that everyone gave each other everyone looks at each other like, should we get up? Who should do it?
I was just like, cool breeze.
Right. Chris has not slept much lately. All right, so in Robotron 2084, which is the full name, the developers actually named the family that you're generally trying to save. What is the name of the kid? I don't know how you know.
At one point, I would remember.
I forgot actually. Yeah, there's actually a bug where if you leave him until the end on the 9 waves, or I'm sorry, on the brain waves, you can actually get all the brains and they'll go after him. Mikey.
That's it.
Nice.
It is Mikey.
I had to talk through
you
it.
got to it. Yeah, it was Mikey. Yeah. And I mean, Robotron is just an insanely amazing game. What's really great is, despite everyone always talking about how it's a unique control scheme, it's so easy to pick up that you know it immediately. Like, there's no confusion. You walk up and for a second you're like, is there another joystick? Is this a 2-player game? And then as soon as you play it, it's perfect. It's obvious.
Yeah, it is a perfect control scheme for that game type. I mean, it created the genre, the dual stick genre that is like every Xbox Live Arcade game ever.
Yeah, and if not for the frustration, with Berserk, maybe it wouldn't even have been invented, because I think that was the control inspiration, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was.
That's right. In fact, the
shooting mechanics were so bad.
The big robots are designed directly after the Berserk characters.
All right, this is going to be 3 gimmies. What do we got?
I would have had a chance of remembering like the family name.
Mario.
All right,
Mikey
these are
Mario.
gimmies. These are buzzing fast. You're flying an ostrich. What game are you playing?
Austin.
Chris.
Who's Joust?
Someone is yelling, "Run, coward!"
Josh.
Austin.
Josh got it.
Sinistar.
Yeah, we got it. Good job.
Popular rock band in the late 70s gets an arcade game. What's it called?
Josh.
I don't know. Who was first? Was it Chris? Was it Josh?
I need the points.
close.
Journey.
Right.
Journey.
You got it. It was Journey. So that's it's so amazing because when I was going through all the different trivia stuff that we had previously made and everything, I looked up some questions, and those 3 were considered difficult questions, and then of course I get to them now, and they're gimmies. They're just automatic.
It's a trick question. The answer was Revolution X.
Yeah, believe me, it popped up in my head.
Okay, so now we're gonna talk. I don't know how this got printed out first, but fine, we're gonna go through it.
Can Free Play Labs like make a Queen game?
Right.
I want a Queen game in the style of Journey.
Oh, is it what? Gosh, why can't I remember? Flash Gordon or whatever.
Flash Gordon, yeah. The music by
it would
Queen.
be pretty cool to. You could use that theming and really go for it.
I like it.
All right, so we're gonna talk highest grossing and most sold games of all time, and I'm gonna try to figure out how to ask questions. But what we're going to do is I'm going to start with Chris. We're going to see how we're going to go through the top 10, and we're going to see who can name the most. So I guess Chris, you have an advantage potentially. But
so we're highest grossing arcade games. Is that what we're looking for?
So you're looking for. So I have the top 10
of all time.
Of all time.
Are we adjusting for inflation at all? Because I'm just gonna go straight Raw Thrills games throughout. If that's
no, and in fact, those Raw Thrills games aren't making near what the big games of the early '80s, even after adjusting for inflation, because there's so fewer. They're not making nearly as many.
Right.
So I can just give you a gimme.
All right, give me
Raw Thrills
Street
is not on
Fighter
the list.
2.
All right, Street Fighter 2 is on the list. Josh,
Space Invaders
is on the list.
I have to go with Defender because it was first to $1 billion.
Defender is on the list.
Give me Pac-Man.
Pac-Man is on the list.
Is Miss Pac-Man separate?
It is.
I'd have to go with Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong is number 10, in fact.
Nice. Let me keep going to the well. Galaga.
Let me see, because I don't know why it's printed out this way, but I think it is not on here. But I don't know for sure.
Well, I dumped 200 million into that machine myself. So.
It is not. Galaga did not make the list.
Asteroids?
Asteroids did make the list.
Probably have to go with Centipede as well.
It is not on the list. We have 3 more games.
I'm surprised at Galaga because...
Right.
Every pizza place ever.
Yeah,
right.
Well, in just modern times, when you have retro games doing quarters, Galaga is the one that people
I know,
play.
it's really amazing.
Man, I'm going to guess anyway. Give me Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Konami beat 'em up, the first one.
Not on the list.
Joust? Did you Joust already?
Joust is not on the list.
What have we got so far? We've got...
I'll give y'all a hint.
We got 7 of the 10, is that right?
Yes. Let's do one more round, and then I'll start giving out some serious hints.
Okay.
So, Chris, let's get a guess.
Give me Mortal Kombat 1.
You got one of the 10. Josh.
Okay. Does the Neo Geo count as...
No. It would be done by individual game, I guess. If there are any real figures ever released, because that would have been pretty tough to track.
You said Street Fighter 2 first, right?
Correct. Street Fighter 2 is off the list. We have 2 left.
Man, I don't... Area 51?
It is not on the list.
This will be a stretch. I know there weren't near as many produced, but I know it was very expensive to produce. I want to guess Daytona.
It was not on the list. So
I was going to look for a racing game.
We're missing 2 90s titles.
Give me NBA Jam.
Yep.
There you go.
And now there's one more sequel to one that's already been said. Josh. Because Chris, I believe, has a lead that cannot be passed. But
sequel to one that's already been said. Mortal Kombat 2?
It was, yeah. Mortal Kombat 2 did outperform. What's really amazing to think about, though, is Mortal Kombat 1 being in the top 10 list. Like,
That game set the world on fire.
Well, it's true, but it's still relative. I mean, it's not like rare, but it compared to MK2, where they had 1 billion of them made, Mortal Kombat 1, like, they were playing catch up until they released Mortal Kombat 2. So just
were a lot of them converted, I would assume?
Well, you see some conversions, but they were distinct cabinets.
Both of them were beautiful cabinets too, by the way.
Well, and I mean, that was the 90s definitely had their moment. It's really crazy to think that Turtles wasn't on that list because
that was the dead period. That was in between Street Fighter 2 and the death of arcades in 85. So that was what kept arcades limping along, but just limping. It didn't light the world on fire quite like Street Fighter 2 did.
Isn't Turtles 89? Isn't it that was definitely pretty much what was saving the arcades.
Well, because for me, going to the arcade when I was 10 was all about playing Ninja Turtles, or actually it was watching somebody else play Ninja Turtles and hoping that they would get to the Technodrome so I could see the lasers again.
All right, here's a
And then
total.
Street Fighter 2 comes out.
And
everything's different.
There were so many Mortal Kombat 2s that what you see is a lot of that cabinet has become converted to so many other things.
Yeah. You can see Mortal Kombat 2s all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, and then it was they had made so many Mortal Kombat 2s. The dedicated Mortal Kombat 4 is basically the same cabinet because they had so many MK2s. So it's just that was. I can't even imagine the amount of lumber that went into making just Mortal Kombat 2s. Just insane. All right, so bonus points. Tagline to Mortal Kombat 1 was very famous. They used it a lot. They probably reused it for the later Mortal Kombats, but it was playing off of the photos that they used to make it. In fact, the photo realism of the game was what they were.
Yeah, wasn't it something like so real something? Or something?
Yeah, so real it hurts, Josh.
Yeah,
that was
hurts.
good.
Yeah.
Nice. So Mortal Kombat. Let me figure out. I dropped the sheets, so we're definitely out of order now. Defender, adjusting for inflation, did 1.6 billion. By the way, Asteroids did 1.3 billion. We'll find the others. Donkey Kong was number 10 actually, doing adjusting for inflation a near 700 million. Wow. They sold 132,000 cabinets apparently of Donkey Kong. And these are all, the figures are kind of weird because this isn't going to be perfect. The manufacturer was asked for reports, but if you know anything about those old school arcade operators, everything was probably a little lower than they were actually making.
Well, that Donkey Kong, I feel like, released at a different time would have been higher. I think the reason why it's at number 10 is because it was kind of the like recovering from the Crash game.
Mm-hmm. And then we've got Mortal Kombat 1 did it adjusting for, it looks like this might be sorted by adjusting for inflation, which is probably how you should do it. It's 748 million in revenue with 24,000. So think about that though. What did we say? 132,000 or something for Donkey Kong?
Yeah, I believe so.
100,000+ Donkey Kong cabinets, which, and that's if you've collected retro arcade games, you'll see Donkey Kongs that have been converted into just everything. And in fact, I mean, Nintendo reused the cabinet themselves a bunch with their verses. And,
all the cabinets look.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, then we have. Now then it's Mortal Kombat 2 doing just according to this only slightly more revenue than Mortal Kombat 1. To me, that's just I can't even fathom that that's true, but they both made a ton of money, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, both of them. MK2 is a much better game, but Mortal Kombat 1, it can't be stated enough, like how revolutionary that game was in its presentation.
It's true. I mean, it was so real it hurt. So I mean, that's a big deal.
Well, and the sound, I just remember the big booming sound of the first MK1 I had heard. Whenever someone gets uppercutted, you know, that Dan Forden sound effects, they're unmistakable.
No,
and they sound exactly like Bride of Pinbot.
It's amazing because that and the Street Fighter pretty much. I mean, that really did bring so many people back to the arcade. Mm-hmm. I mean, and so I imagine Jam doesn't have its success without that many people just running to the arcade.
Not at all. Yeah, it's leads right into that. I do believe because Smash TV comes out before then. Eugene Jarvis and NBA Jam creator Mark Turmel did that together. So
Defender was 6. Did crack $1 billion in real revenue, adjusting for inflation. It's got around 1.6 billion. They made 60,000 of them, and if that's another one that if you're into arcade collecting at all, you'll see a lot of Defender cabinets pop up. What you'll also see is a ton of Defender PCBs. I feel like I've seen more Defender PCBs because they're unique to all the Williams games run very similar board sets, but Defender is unique. And there's so many of them, it's insane. So they were converting games if they were pulling that many PCBs out of these cabinets.
I think they probably converted 10,000 of them to Black Tigers. I don't know what the official number is, but I've seen so many Defenders that are. It's actually really cool that you've got an original Black Tiger that wasn't a conversion.
The full kit, yeah. And then so then NBA Jam was 5 with the $1.7 billion. Jeez. And I guess but off of only 20,000 cabinets. So we were just talking about 60,000 cabinets. I mean, the MKs were in the 20s.
Yeah, well, those games, if you played NBA Jam, you'd want to play a full game. It was two coins generally for quarter.
Each quarter,
I think that was default.
Yeah.
So you're paying 8 quarters in 1992 or 3.
And then you've got 3 other friends also.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Well, so that could just rake in the money.
Well, but that's why it's so weird that we don't see Turtles or Simpsons on here, because those things, I mean, we have some Turtles that are out in the world right now at Alamo Draft House and Lakewood Brewery, and those are outperforming everything just at a quarter a pop, just because that's how the game was designed. Like, it was designed to make some money.
Well, and Simpsons is just so common. There's so many Simpsons cabinets that pop up.
Right.
Way more than Turtles and everything else.
Yeah, that's really interesting. They really went all out on building those Simpsons. So yeah, you would have thought they would have.
But yeah, and it was the first one too.
Right. So yeah, so then we have Miss Pac with 125,000 Miss Pacs made. Not too surprising there.
No.
And 2.5 billion. So that was the big jump. On this list, at least, however accurate it is, it went 1.7 billion to 2.5 billion, and you know Miss Pac's still earning today, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I cannot eat pizza in a restaurant without playing Miss Pac-Man. If they don't have it, then I'm not going.
And it's really crazy to think about, because that's something we've learned, and Josh was mentioning it earlier. Galaga outperforms Miss Pac out on location, but was not on this list.
Very similar games.
And they
sister games, really.
In the
20th anniversary.
Well, right, they're forever combined now.
Yeah.
All right, so then Street Fighter 2. I assume this is including all Street Fighter 2 releases.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was just World Warrior, because again, that's just a revolutionary game, much like Mortal Kombat 1. I mean, more so than Mortal Kombat 1.
According to this includes both CE and World Warrior. So the first 2 releases, we just jumped from 2.5 billion to 3.6 billion dollars for the first 2 Street Fighter 2s allegedly. And yeah, I've heard stories from just all sorts of people in the arcade community that talk about being a tech when that was released, and just constantly having to change coin bins because it just fills up.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I remember I was a EGM subscriber, Electronic Gaming Monthly, at the time, and there was something like 50 consecutive covers that were either Street Fighter 2 or Mortal Kombat.
Right. Well, and yeah, so we've been talking big numbers. Space Invaders is number 2. With nearly $7 billion in revenue, which we talked about the yen shortage in the first episode of this trivia thing. It caused a nationwide yen shortage because everyone in Japan was playing Space Invaders. That was the only game worth playing at the time, or at least that they thought. Mm-hmm. And that was just, eating it up. They made 360,000 Space Invaders cabinets.
Wow.
I would have never guessed that.
So yeah, we're in Richardson, Texas, a suburb of Dallas that has about 100,000 people. If we worked really, really hard, we could give every single one of them a Space Invaders cab, because they were well built. These things are, the metal cocktails everywhere. That's interesting.
They are. Oh, you're gonna try and do that? They are. It is a pretty cabinet. Like it is good, even though it's really, really old and a rudimentary game design by today's standards. It's still a great cabinet.
Well, just beating that first level of Space Invaders is a lot of fun. It fades really fast, right?
Because the second level is the first level.
It just keeps happening. But getting down to that last invader and having them go ultra speed and shoot, it's so cool. And famously, it's going ultra speed because that's just how the processor. It's not actually a clocked processor.
Yeah, it's just speeding up with less animation.
It's processing less, so it's slowly getting faster. And they were like, "This is a bug," and he was like, "Nah, it's a feature." Like, he's the first one that might have done that. Who knows?
Right. There's so many happy coincidence bugs out there. Combos in Street Fighter 2 are famously among them.
And then their number 1 was Pac-Man. 400,000 cabinets made. Wow. Sold. And almost $8 billion allegedly in revenue. Which is weird because we don't even have a Pac-Man cabinet in Free Play Richardson anymore, because Miss Pac is so much better.
Right.
And we used to put them next to each other because it was kind of cool. And then, of course, our collection's so big and we're trying to make sure we have a great rotation. It just became obvious Pac-Man was going to get cut because we have Miss Pac. It's the same game, but better.
That Miss Pac with the speed chip, I think, is probably one of the greatest improvements on the original ever. You go back and play the other one, it just seems like you're going so slow.
I can't do it. I don't care that it's the original release. And I feel justified in my thought process there because, the subsequent releases by the creator of Pac-Man have all been sped up.
Well, yeah, that was
so much funner.
Yeah, that was, that was
fun, I can say. I can speak the English.
You're tired. But yeah, so that was it's not controversial at all anymore to run the speed shift. Like, it's just, you have to do that because the original, it's still a fun game playing the original Mistpack, but when you compare the two, the experience is not even on the same playing field. Like, it's just different. And it's still hard. It's still a hard game. It's not like it's an ultra easy game with the speed chip. Obviously, the better you get, but it still becomes kind of a difficult game, and it's entrancing in that way.
It's a different game. The original Mistpack without the speed chip is like a real zoning game. You're just sort of kind of lulling the ghosts together and then collecting them all at the same time. It's an excruciatingly boring process to get through that level, and then speed Mistpack, you just done.
Well, and then of course I was watching a kid yesterday play Baby Pack and just start to lose his mind trying to play the mazes because obviously without the power pellets, it's just difficult to say
that game is extremely difficult.
The AI in that game is just incredibly difficult, especially if you don't have the power pellets and also the settings on it. Right, I actually played another. It was another location, wasn't it free play, and. The doors were automatically open, to exit.
Oh, really?
So yeah, they had it set differently.
Yeah, I believe one of our settings were at one point.
You gotta earn that. That's a ton of lights for a reason.
The tunnel should be earned, I believe. Yeah.
I feel like when we first had it, they were open, but only the first time you go up there.
I don't know. That's interesting. I guess we should check this out.
Oh, we're talking the side doors.
Yeah, the tunnel entrance you've got to earn on the settings. But I played another one at another location. They were already open.
Right.
It felt too easy.
Right. All right. So we're talking a little arcade history now, a little arcade trivia history. I'm looking for. We just did the 10 top grossing. Chris got the point for that. Now we're going to do the 10 games that were featured in the Life magazine famous spread that was done. I believe it's 83 or 84. So that kind of limits the games. Right. They featured 10 gamers and
Austin's got this one.
The top 10 scores.
I'm going to gamble my point on Austin winning this point.
So we started at Chris last time. We're going to start at Josh this time.
Do it.
So you're just looking for the 10 games they featured?
Yeah, the 10 games that were featured. We're going to try to do the same kind of thing. We're going to rotate through and we're going to try to come up with the list. Whoever gets the most right gets the point.
Donkey Kong?
That was there, yes. Famously by Steve Sanders with an impossible 3 million points scored.
Congratulations, Steve.
Centipede
was there. Let's see who was...
Billy Mitchell, 15 million.
Was that?
I believe.
Yeah, it was. You're right.
I'm going Dallas. Give me Qbert.
Not here.
Oh, Ben Gold, you let me down.
Ben Gold was there, though.
Mm-hmm. He was, yep. Different machine, I believe.
Yeah. All right.
Miss Pac-Man?
Was there, yes.
I have to go with Defender.
Definitely here somewhere. Yep. Probably. Yep.
I think Ben Gold might have been on Defender, if I'm not mistaken.
He was on Stargate, actually.
Oh, Stargate. So there you go.
They had...
Stargate. One.
I got tricked.
One.
All right, back to Josh.
Robotron?
Let's see. Robotron was not here.
I'm going to go with Nibbler.
Not here.
Dr. Mario.
Definitely not here. We've got 5 left.
Standard Pac-Man?
Not here.
Did we guess Donkey Kong already?
Yeah. Donkey Kong was guessed.
Okay.
Galaga?
Not here. We have 2 Williams games left. An Atari, a Nintendo, and... Oh, 2 Ataris and a Nintendo.
Joust?
Joust was there, yes.
Asteroids.
Somehow not here.
Wow.
Popeye.
Not here. Chris doesn't even remember that many games at this point.
Yeah.
We did Joust, Robotron, Defender, Stargate. Did they really have bubbles?
They did not have bubbles.
Yeah, I'm out of Williams games too.
There's one more at Arlington.
Yeah, and it's not. I'm thinking of a Williams game now, and so I'm kind of stuck down that path. But I know it's not Sinistar.
It is not.
Well, there's 2.
Yeah, I'm lost. I don't know.
One of the games is in this room. Not the Williams, but it is
War Final Assault.
Close.
Is Make Tracks the other one?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm still stuck on the Williams thing.
Yeah.
There's one more y'all haven't said.
Moon Patrol.
There it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the classic era. It's got to be Moon Patrol.
Weird.
All right, so we have Nintendo, and I believe it's two Ataris. I can't. One is the one that no one remembers being there. The only reason I know this game exists is because it was there, and then we own it now in the collection. But okay, how about this, Chris?
Just bad Atari games. Race driving.
It's an Atari.
Yeah. No, it was not race driving. Here's a clue. There was one vector game there, and we haven't said it yet.
Or not asteroids. Oh, Star Wars?
No.
One Atari Vector.
Tempest?
Yes.
Ah.
There you go.
Now we have 2 games left. One Nintendo, one Atari. I think it's Atari. I'm pretty sure it's one's the really obscure one that most people don't remember, and then one is a big popular Super Nintendo hit.
Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo.
I got you.
Let's go with Mario Brothers. Yeah,
not there.
Yeah.
That's a good guess. Yeah. It's not Donkey Kong Jr., right?
It is!
No, it is.
Hey!
Wow. Awesome.
Was it a combo board?
It was not. All right, so the one game y'all probably will not guess is the mispronunciation of King Tut. Tutankhamen, or however they... Tutankin, or whatever they did. That was Mr. Mark Robachek.
Congratulations.
He had 221,000 points. We've got one right, I think, just behind these games.
Nice.
That we've never put out. And honestly, I bought it. It's an okay game, but I bought it pretty much just because it was featured in this lineup. So, Josh, I think you took that one. You did.
Nice. Good job.
All right. So, yeah, famously, we had Steve Sanders there with the impossible 3 million on Donkey Kong, which...
How many of these scores have been invalidated?
Right,
I know at least
exactly.
2 of them have been invalidated.
Well, so, I mean, interestingly enough, Ben Gold, of course, from Richardson was there with, monster scores on a ton of games. He was there representing Stargate with 40 million. Wow.
Still hasn't been broken, I believe.
Yeah, that's a heck of a score. Billy Mitchell with his 25 million exactly on Centipede.
Nice.
Wow.
Not that it counts anymore.
That's not.
Which, he was clearly good, but he was wearing a shirt and a mustache that said Centipede 25 million, and then he had a sweet little stash there. But yeah, that was, as talked about in King of Kong. Steve Sanders was already known as it not being true because Billy Mitchell was scoring in like the 400,000s, and he was like, "There's no way you're getting 3 million."
Right.
And then Billy Mitchell will one day score 1 billion points on Donkey Kong. We're really excited for his efforts. So yeah, that was the vector was Tempest. Defender had a 72 million. Where's Defender at nowadays?
Yeah, it's just shy of 80 million, and there's been several records that cracked that 70 million barrier. And an interesting thing I've always heard is, the 24 million that was the world record for a while there was the reason why, like it or not, Twin Galaxies actually started record keeping. That was the first game that inspired it.
Well,
Is it,
both good and bad.
Were you saying when we were talking a few months ago that there's a glitch in those games that resets the lives or something like that?
Yeah, so and it's true of Centipede. It's true of some of the others that when you talk about the counters that are programmed in. So Defender, once you get to 990,000, it doesn't register the calculation in code because it's about 6,000 lines of assembly to actually calculate 1 million. So what happens is once you hit 990,000, everything you get shot by, ran into, you shoot, it gives you a free ship and a free smart bomb. So the speaker system goes nuts during that time. The other thing is, and the kind of follow-up to that is it keeps calculation on that. So if you get 40 free ships and 40 free smart bombs, you won't start getting your next free ship again until 1.4 million or whatever the calculation is. So it actually does keep track. And the interesting thing about that, and they don't specify this on Twin Galaxies to kind of support the why we all question Twin Galaxies now, is you can game that. It's pretty easy to game it and just keep count of the actual rollover count of ships and bombs you have. So you could go in with 100 plus ships and basically 200 smart bombs and just carpet bomb everything the next second, third, fourth million all the way up. So that being said, they don't specify that you're not allowed to use that on Twin Galaxies, for example.
And Robotron has a similar?
Robotron has a similar, and so does Stargate. The thing is, no one has ever hit Stargate because Stargate's register hits at 99,990,000. The only person I've known that has actually hit it, and I'll do a call out to Paul Spriggs if he sees this. He actually lives in Australia now. He maimed it, so an original ROM version of it, so that he could pause it and get to it and prove it on Stargate. But yeah, Robotron does as well. Dave Gomez could easily get to that. I've seen Dave Gomez play to 180 180, well, whatever it is on Robotron. I forget where it rolls, but whatever the digit roll, he's basically rolled it twice, and it has the same thing. Problem with that is the counter. Right. 256 ships is the counter. So guess what? If you count to 255,
go back to 1, right?
Yeah, 256, it goes back to 0
nice.
In reserve. So the one you're playing is the one you've got.
Well, yeah, and I guess the Robotron now is almost entirely measured by like how long you're playing it is. And like it's a true endurance. Yeah,
all of these that we're talking about are like 80-hour games. Yeah. I mean, the Defender record's an 80-hour game. The Robotron record, which everyone knows is impossible to score, the 360 million. I forget.
Can't remember.
But I've seen Dave Gomez play to half that, and it took him 40 hours, and he's incredibly good.
Yeah, I think I saw. Because the Robotron community is really awesome, and they have their own, like, they've kind of given up on trying to track records because of how nonsensical it gets and because of how easily it is to cheat. But then it's just like a trusty group of people seeing how long they can play and like having like the 100-hour challenge and stuff like that, which is crazy, but like a cool crazy. Because, and that is still, and I've told this story before, it's still my favorite Twin Galaxies story. At the beginning of all the Twin Galaxies record books, it used to have Walter Day telling the story of the 100-hour challenge, where he got an insurance company to put up, I think he said he paid a couple $100, and they said if anyone plays one game on 1 credit for 100 straight hours, they'll give them $10,000. And you know, that's the story that has like random Asian people showing up in a town that's where I can't even remember.
Iowa somewhere.
Yeah, and playing like 80 hours and then disappearing in the night. Like, just, I mean, most of it's probably not true, but I always really like loved that story, hearing about all these great arcade players showing up to try to play 1 credit. And of course, you know, like the Pac-Man, he was like, I'm just going to go in. The guy who picks Pac-Man just wants to go in circles the whole time. And to try
that's exactly what I would do.
To try to stay awake.
Park it somewhere.
Right.
And then there's the stories of people picking games like Defender, which at the time were
good luck with that.
Were like notoriously difficult, and then they're going to try to play it 100 hours. The guy dragging the game while it's somehow still plugged in to the toilet so he can play while he's using the restroom. I mean, like, just
wow,
really crazy stuff. Which, of course, if I remember correctly, Walter Day's arcade was really quite small.
Yeah.
And so he had like 1 toilet, and this guy just took the toilet, and that was his competitive advantage. Alleged. I mean, like, nice. It was a beautiful story. Whether or not any of it's true, who knows? But yeah, 100 hours has been kind of the all-time. And I assume, do you know of any arcade players that have done the 100 hours and actually done it?
You know, the only ones that I know that are really credible that have actually, I've seen them play to 40 hours, right, are typically about half of what you see on some of those world records. And I think that's why I see so many of them are just so questionable, right?
Well,
the top Robotron is an 80-hour score. I do actually know a person who I think is number 8 or 9 on Defender, who did play to 72, 73 million. And I believe him because I actually know him. And that to me is the longest game I've ever heard. That's basically an hour per million. It's about a 73-hour game.
I've seen Qbert players do that. I think Qbert might be the endurance record. It's closing in on 100 hours, and that's because they can get enough lives that they can take a quick nap and then wake back up and then continue to press the limits of human endurance until they eventually, die.
Yep.
I've played Robotron for at least 100 seconds.
That was very much that. Let's see. We've got a close game. I believe right now, Chris, you are
6th.
See, that's the trick, is like he secretly has 5 previously made scores that he's comparing us to. So your top 5 prediction may not be true.
Oh no.
Right, yeah. So what y'all don't know is just before y'all came here, I was here at 4 a.m. recording with a whole different group of people, and I have their scores. No. So right now we have Chris at 17, Josh at 18, Austin at 14. And we're pretty much out of questions. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to do the ones that I skipped because I thought they were going to be too hard. So Pong
too hard
was famously created on an oscilloscope in the 50s as kind of like something to keep the kids interested in at a certain laboratory that was doing these tours for local students. And they were bored out of their mind. Does anyone have to know the guy who programmed the original Pong on that oscilloscope? If you ever see a photo, he's always like blowing smoke like right into a kid's face. Like he's not really doing that, but he has a cigar in his mouth, and there's a bunch of kids around, and you're just like, the 50s were definitely a different time.
I do know this. I've seen it many times on my Facebook feed. Chris, Steve Jobs
is in fact not the answer. Steve Jobs never known to actually make a real game, but
my Facebook took says he made everything.
He's the Michael Jackson of game creation.
I don't think it's actually Ralph Baer.
No, it's a guy named William Higginbottom.
Right.
He was that the other one you were gonna guess?
I like now that you say that, I feel like I've heard that before because like why wouldn't you remember a ridiculous name like Higginbottom? But,
well, yeah, and he had actually apparently considered patenting it because he had patented all of his other work at the laboratory, which was a U.S. government laboratory, and so he didn't own any of the patents. But he'd considered there was a chance there that for like 7 or 14 years, depending on the different patent law, I don't actually know which patent law existed at the time, that the U.S. government could have had a patent that covered basically all video games, period. It would have expired before Atari really got going, but that is a consideration that the U.S. government in another world could just own video games. And then, we could play Battlezone and America's Army or whatever those games are. All right, so then
you have any Neo Geo questions?
I didn't actually. Here, though, I don't actually know the answer to this. What is the total number of Neo Geo games that were made? Including the
homebrew?
That gets murky.
Yeah.
But okay, let's go officially released, but including the Mahjong games. Do we know it was like 258 or something?
I thought it was
around there.
I thought it was like 372. But like I like don't quote me on that. But I definitely saw the number not that long ago, so I feel like it was 300 something.
Well, yeah, I know. I think,
or is 372 the NES number?
I don't know.
They probably have about the same number.
You're right. Well, that was so. Yeah, there was someone who listed what they called a complete Neo Geo collection in Europe a couple years ago. But then, of course, everyone came and they were like, "No, you're missing this game, and this game," because there were. I mean, it was not hard to make a Neo Geo game. To release for Neo Geo, they were basically allowing anyone who wanted to make a Neo Geo game to make one, with mostly paying royalties on the revenue rather than royalties up front. So that was why you had like 200 Mahjong games for Neo Geo. I think the consensus is there's like 110 actual good games for Neo Geo. Or even qualifying good.
Just one, Match Melee.
Right.
Well, it's funny because like even the Wikipedia list isn't complete because it doesn't have that Jockey Grand Prix game that we just got.
Right. Well, yeah, we're constantly finding games, and we're like, we had no idea that this existed, and then there it is, and then you search the internet for that name, and of course, there's people talking, but it just didn't make it to the main lists or anything. Jockey Grand Prix is one of the ones that can link like League Bowling, correct? Is that's the one?
I don't know if that's a link cable or
oh, right.
So,
yeah,
so the Wikipedia article says 148 released. So way less than that number that I said.
So like 200 of those were Mahjong. Like, no. So they were probably like 40
I believe there were
Mahjong
10
games.
Mahjong games and like 6 quiz games or something that never came over to the US, but every other game actually came over to the US because the Neo Geo, all the other languages are actually programmed onto the cart. Every single cart is the same. It uses the motherboard to determine what language it displays. So if you play a game on a Japanese motherboard, it's going to be in Japanese, and if you play the same cartridge on an English motherboard, it'll be in English.
Nice.
All right, so here's another one of those questions.
Which of course is why so many of the games have hilarious, like
right.
badly translated lines. Is because they translated them basically in-house in Japan.
Right. Which, has given America a lot of fun since the internet was invented.
Right.
to enjoy. All right, so
don't worry, they're laughing at our pronunciations from earlier in the podcast.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Our Texas accent.
So there was this is actually a Sega question, which, as we all know, there weren't that many Sonic, and it's in fact a Sonic question. There weren't that many Sonic arcade games. One is on the free play Richardson floor right now. And then there's the other one, which is the 3 trackball game. What was that one called?
Well, it's either called Sonic or Sega Sonic, because that's what he was called in Japan, Sega Sonic. But it's just like Sega Sonic the Hedgehog is just the name of the game.
So who was the inspiration for Dr. Eggman or Robotnik? So, because there's a famous story of Sega executives sitting around and coming up with who they wanted characters to be.
Teddy Roosevelt.
It is. It's Teddy Roosevelt.
I can see that. He's
yeah,
got that mustache.
They wanted. I mean, and there's all these different like characters they wanted to make.
Don't you dare shoot that hedgehog.
And yeah, Teddy Roosevelt was one. All right, let's see here. Wow. So this one is actually debated within my research, but the name of the university that the
MIT.
Alexei Pajitnov, that's the Tetris guy.
Yeah.
Was attending, and it's debated. So you can throw off any Russian college.
Yeah.
I know one, which is St. Petersburg University. St. Petersburg. He was apparently potentially studying there some, but apparently he was also in Moscow. Who knows? St. Petersburg University has like 400,000 students, by the way.
Wow.
So you're close friends with all your classmates, obviously.
I see, yeah.
All right, yeah, so that is the total of the trivia. Josh, you're the victor with 18 correct questions. Chris, 17. Pretty good. Better than you expected. You got second place, so you did correctly predict top 5.
There you go.
And then Austin comes in with 14. So it was a really pretty good tight battle. I think actually what we learned is that y'all had kind of different areas of expertise that y'all kind of knew. And I think, Chris, if I had more Raw Thrills questions, you probably would have won the game.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Running away.
He is our in-house Raw Thrills expert.
That's right.
Knowing just about everything there is to know about Raw Thrills. So that is...
I can name every good Raw Thrills game like right now.
Right now. This instant.
Right. And I did it.
There is a breath of air there, and that is it. That is the total list. All right, so that's the total. That's all of the trivia questions we had. Now, do we have any that I've missed that you think I should have asked?
Oh man,
I mean, there were a lot more of things that I didn't do, like arcade games appearing in media that I considered. The Terminator 2 arcade scene, and
Afterburner,
and which one am I thinking? Because
Missile Command's famously in T2 as well.
We've watched basically any movie that has an arcade in it now. We have a good excuse. And then there's really
I haven't rewatched what is the one with Hulk Hogan. Suburban Commando. Yeah, has an arcade scene.
Does it? Yeah. There was I rewatched the Miami Vice that has Mario Brothers in it. And then of course now it's you see arcade games popping up in all sorts of media because the 80s is getting a whole media renaissance with just which is really cool, right? Because
apparently there were LCD screens in the 80s.
I feel like what I've seen more often is random pinballs.
Oh yeah, pinball in every bar scene they'd have like an old EM pinball, even through the early 90s.
Well, yeah, it's like I feel like a lot of stuff made in the 80s and in early 90s, it was like, we want to put some sort of arcade thing here. EMs, nobody cares about those, so they can get them cheap.
Well, they were cheap and you could break them. Right. Yeah. And it's almost a trope, like throwing a guy onto a pinball table and watching the glass break. And it was always an EM pinball. It was always something bad.
Jackie Chan famously beat people up with pinball machines in Rumble in the Bronx.
Watching the Dukes of Hazzard car smash into a pinball machine.
Yeah.
So they're both broken.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, there were those. Let's see, are there any? I mean, I tried to include a bunch about the different media companies and stuff. What no one talks about is how which doesn't really apply here because it was an arcade thing, but how Activision really kind of swooped in the late '80s, took all of the talent and took them to the consoles, which in many ways helped kind of that shift. Interestingly enough, all the people that stuck with Atari and all the people that stuck with Williams or the Midway stuff, you saw a lot of them at the very end of the 90s just depressed with life, but with some kind of a pension. Like, that seemed to be what they had done, is just stuck it out for however long they needed their pension to vest. And then it just liquidated all the talent. And, I mean, it's not like anyone was buying arcade games anymore because the redemption machines had taken over every arcade that was still existing. And I tried to research the very first redemption arcade machine, and I found no information because obviously they've been doing it. But I was really looking for the very first ticket game, because in my head I'm trying to figure out how ticket counters really, like, did they have like a lineup of 10 games that came out, or like chicken and the egg? How did they decide to have tickets? How did they decide to have these prize counters and everything?
Probably relates to carnival games, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
but I feel like
galleries.
I feel like probably not first, but skee ball's got to be pretty early.
Right? Yeah, I guess that's by the mid 90s, they were putting the ticket machines on everything. So yeah,
and literal, like you said, carnival games, shooting galleries, arcades.
It was really that actual transaction of the tickets because at some point that became the dominant.
So I feel like ticket games are definitely more of an American thing.
Oh
but it feels a lot like in Japan, where gambling is illegal. So the way they get around that is pachinko machines, which are gambling machines. You actually just win the little silver balls, and then you go out of the pachinko parlor and around the corner to a separate place that just so happens to give you things in exchange for little silver balls.
Well, and
green stamps.
And by all accounts, it's become like just so pervasive that it's not even right. It's like there's people walking behind you that'll just give you cash for the balls now, and that it's just like it's open and notorious. But yeah, it was like, I guess because every arcade in Japan is half arcade, half gambling den.
I did not visit.
At least the big ones.
Yeah, I didn't. I passed by those places.
Because I famously got into a fight with people in our community group because they were posting that kind of cool arcade that is supposed to look... That's supposed to look like a dingy world, like the bottom floor has like you're stepping over stones and all of a sudden. And I'm just like, how did they get permits for this? But whatever. You're like crossing a creek. You go upstairs and it's like a dingy underworld scene, and they've got an original Street Fighter 1, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then the top floors, there's like 3 levels of claw games because Sega UFO and the various claw machines in Japan are massive. And then the top is where they make all of their money, and it's just where they have different gambling and different stuff. But and that's the other sad thing that I was going to go into a little bit potentially was which major American arcade manufacturers are now making gambling games or slot machines, and the answer is all of them.
All of them. That's what I would think.
I mean that is. Which is sad because you think they'd get better at it. Like I'm not a huge like slot machine fan or anything, but I'll occasionally walk through a casino and of course, and then it's really scary how close the casino games are to the redemption games that you like. I mean, they're using the same parts and the same gimmicks to.
Yeah, that definitely freaks me out.
Well, it's great. It's just.
I mean, they're the same. What's the difference? One dispenses actual money, the other dispenses fake money
that you can trade in for prizes, right?
Right, but you're throwing money away all the same.
Well, and famously, Konami has basically stopped doing games now and is now just either licensing their game stuff or licensing their game stuff specifically to do like slot machines and pachinko games and things like that.
Well,
and we get those catalogs from IGS,
right.
who do a bunch of redemption games and slot machine games, but they made the PGM, which Martial Masters is on,
right?
Things like that.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, it's kind of weird because like in the 70s and 80s, they started making all these laws concerned about gambling to make it difficult to open up an arcade because they had things like pinball and these games like Tapper and we're looking at Bagman. They were worried about gambling involved with those games. And, I mean, there were 8-liner concerns and other stuff, but it was generally just like arcades are bad. They could encourage gambling. And now there's actual kiddie gambling going on. There's redemption games and the laws that no one even seems to care about that. Like, it's bizarre to me that their worst fears came true and they didn't actually stop that. They just stopped cool arcades with real games from opening.
Welcome to the Black Mirror episode of the Free Play Arcade podcast.
Which, obviously this is... All right, so anything else? Can y'all think of anything else, any other topic, any other trivia that you just have stuck in your brain that you wish I had asked about?
There's a lot, but I feel like it's definitely would... I can only think of like one example right now, but there's definitely others. But there's just a lot of interesting ways that arcade games diverged. I know that there's at least a few arcade games where they weirdly had 2 sequels or differences between the arcade and the console versions.
Right.
So the one I'm thinking about right now, because there's a Golden Axe right there, is the actual sequel to Golden Axe is Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder.
Right.
But that only ever had an arcade release. And on the console, they instead made their own Golden Axe 2, which is just called Golden Axe 2, which did not have an arcade version. So I should say they had separate sequels basically for arcade and console versions. I mean,
console, Metal Gear had that similar aspect where there were 2 different Metal Gear 2s.
Right.
It sort of has an arcade version because there's a MegaTech cart, but
Right.
it's really just the Genesis one.
No arcade would ever put a MegaTech out. That's insane. That's too rare.
Once again, did not know it existed until it hit the free play floors.
Well, MegaTech's one of my favorites because the hardcore arcade people will be walking through the arcade and they're like, yeah, this is cool. And then they'll see that and they'll be like, no way. Like, I love it because Mike has had to say, yes, I know how rare that is. Mike, the bartender, like a million times because it seems like, the arcade people are trying to come on like a slower day. So they'll be there on like his Monday when he's by himself and and they'll run up there and be like, do y'all even know? Do y'all know? Like, what the heck are you doing? And he's like, yes. It's very rare. I understand.
Right. And then they just walk right past Major Havoc.
Right. Yeah, a dedicated Major Havoc's right behind them at that time. Yeah.
Just wait till we put out the Mega Play.
Right. That's true. We got to get the Mega Play coming up, which will open up some other Sega games. Because that's the thing, like, Sega just didn't do nearly as much as Nintendo did, but everyone has these experiences with these games on consoles. Yeah. And Sega was trying, it's just a little different, like not actually releasing the Mega.
Which is the important thing about the Mega Play is that it had less games, it only had 10 games, but they redesigned them specifically to run on arcade, so they run off of credits rather than doing the Play Choice 10 style timer thing.
Yeah, I think you could probably dive into a lot of the different engineering development. I know you have, like, even in the Kelly Ray buy, you talked about some of the modularity that developed over time, but you could dive a lot into that and just you could almost lose yourself in that because you could, if you know enough about them, you know how much of the Williams games kind of borrowed from each other code-wise, hardware-wise. They improved electrically how reliably they were, it's really cool if you want to dive that deep, but you'd have a hard time. You'd have to get the right audience on a trivia.
We're not able to get any of those questions.
We get the hardcore arcade collectors in here for arcade collector trivia. Well, and that was, speaking of sequels, I was just remembering, so I mean there's a lot of weird stuff we have behind us. It's a conversion cab, but it's the Galaga Xevious Mappy re-release. It was like Namco something, or they called it something, I can't remember what they called it, but they made actual sequels to Galaga Xevious Mappy Midway, or whatever they are. But yeah, they made actual sequels that are only on that game. It's actual 100% direct sequels. I mean, because obviously Galaga's on there? All right, anyways, whatever.
Galaga had it was Galaga 3, right?
Well, yeah, it was Galapagos.
Was there
Galapagos? Yeah.
Because Galaga is technically the sequel to Galaxy, and so Galaga was the second, and so they did call it Galaga 3.
But that's okay. So Galaga being the second series.
So this would actually be a sequel, a direct sequel to Galaga, a re-envisioning with modern technology. And we're gonna. It's kind of funny.
Next podcast we have a timeline of Galaga.
Right.
Well, you got to include the one from Raw Thrills.
They didn't.
Oh dear, where does that fit in?
Well, we'll get one in here just for you to play, Chris. You can you can do the world record run.
24 hour
marathon. 24 tickets, I think, is the record.
Yeah, I think if you get 27 tickets, you'll break the current world record. It'll be pretty massive. No, so I mean, yeah, there's obviously, it's actually really hard to try to figure out this kind of trivia because so much of it is so obvious to us that like no one would even like the Run Coward in Sinistar was one of the most missed things, and that was controversial at the time and stuff, and
even things that would be obscure to some people are like who amongst us can name what the original name for Ms. Pac-Man was?
Ms. Pac-Man?
Probably all of us.
I don't know what was the original name for Ms. Pac-Man.
Yeah,
really?
Honestly, I don't think I did.
Crazy Otto, right?
Oh gosh, Chris,
yep.
You're killing me, Chris. Well, does anyone? So I mean, but yeah. So I came across the original for Pac-Man, right, with the puck and whatever and different things, and I remember thinking way back when I'd look inside Pac-Man and I'd have Puck-Man and written. I was like, this is some sort of knockoff. Like before I knew anything, and there's actually a lot of situations that are kind of like that where the different name changes and different ways they released them made me think that I was getting knockoff stuff way before. But I mean, during my first 100 games or whatever that I purchased. But yeah, so
it's like that just reminds me of, we have Blazing Star on Neo Geo. This is an interesting trivia thing. There's just so many interesting things that happened with Neo Geo cartridges in the way operators handled them. We have a Blazing Star where the label on it is labeled as Concord B Star.
Right.
And what that is like, you look at that and you think it's a bootleg or something, but it actually is a legitimate blazing star. Apparently what certain operators would do is like when they were swapping out the games for new ones, they would try to sell off the old ones, and to try to incentivize people to buy the game, they would put a label on there that made it look like it was some new game when it was actually the same game.
Right, yeah. So you'll see, and that one, that one's pretty famous because you can find it under those two different names pretty regularly, and it's crazy. I mean, and the Neo Geo's popularity in South America and Central America and the Western Europe part of it's really amazing because it's like the Spain, Portugal, and all of the countries that still speak Portuguese and Spanish ate the Neo Geo up to quantities that it's just insane to think about. And it's always interesting because if we run a rare Neo Geo game, we'll have people driving up from Mexico because they're like, I remember that, and no one in the arcade from Richardson, Texas has a clue that
the scene for King of Fighters in Mexico is gargantuan. And I recognize it's I've asked different players from Mexico about it, like the cross-handed style where you use your right hand to use the joystick and the left hand to use the buttons is it was a fad in Mexico, and so all these great players of King of Fighters learned how to play cross-handed. It's wild to see it.
And we have a King of Fighters 97 mini marquee that's in Spanish because we got that.
Right. Yeah.
I guess that Neo Geo was originally in Mexico.
I see a lot of cartridges, being dumped that are, like you said, they're from Italy, from Argentina, from Peru,
right? Just
in droves. Yeah, Italy has been a surprising.
I don't know what
when I go on eBay and find cartridges, like the affordable ones are coming from Italy.
I've purchased 3 from Italy and 1 from France.
That's very. You'll see Japanese sellers selling plenty of Neo Geo stuff, but it's really amazing how America, even though there was the Neo Geo in every laundromat that I ever went to, didn't get nearly the Neo Geo exposure.
Yeah, but they all have World Heroes.
Right. Well, it was, what is it? That would have been really good. I wish I had Neo Geo sales numbers because it would have been like Metal Slug 1,
right.
World Heroes.
For me, it was always 2-slot, Samurai Showdown 2, or Samurai Showdown 1, and Bust a Move.
Right, Bust a Move, a good crushing puzzle game that they made a ton of. So I guess we'll go back to the well. We probably can't reuse these questions because the people that are going to watch this are probably the same people that we'd come invite back for trivia. But I think it's pretty fun. I think it's interesting to see what kind of discussion that these kind of questions bring up, because that's key. Because
we could go genre specific too. Well, we could have a ton of puzzle game questions and a ton of fighting game questions, and just go Golden Age, and Austin will destroy us all.
Well, it's interesting just going through these two. All the urban legends were a lot of fun, and that I think would be a really fun just topic. We'd try to get all the urban legends into one trivia thing, because it's so. It's really great because I was reading, because we watched a long time ago, Free Play employees, back when we had like 6 of us, watched Arcade the movie. I don't know if y'all
I still haven't seen that one.
Yeah, Chris wasn't an employee yet. And I was reading up on it.
They showed that at Alamo.
And that's the thing. We just located a version, because Richard, the co-founder of Free Play, has been obsessed with finding one that had semi-finished CGI. So I guess the backstory is, what movie were they copying that they got in trouble for?
They got in trouble for Tron, right?
It was Tron. Yeah. So they were going inside a video game, and so Disney was like, and their first art thing was basically ripping right off of Tron. Like, everything seemed too Tron. So they then just basically deleted all of the computer animation and tried to just throw together a movie, and it looks like it's terrible.
I actually have seen this movie on USA Up All Night in the early 90s.
It's got a very young Seth Green in it.
But that was, it
wasn't everything though.
It was inspired by like 15 different arcade legends, and apparently there's some discussion, because apparently this movie's getting played. I guess Alamo played it. It's actually coming back to popularity, and there's all these different urban legends from arcades that are supposed to be featured in the movie Arcade. The biggest of which is like getting sucked into a game and trawling it up.
I don't want to say specifics in case we want to save it for questions, but like urban legends and arcades just always makes me think of Mortal Kombat and how many like myths there were around Mortal Kombat. And my favorite thing is just how NetherRealms took a lot of those things and then turned them into actual things in the game.
No, you're right. Well, and that just made me think of Was it? No, I don't remember. It was Jack Black, I think, in the X-Files episode when they're playing. I think they're playing Tekken, and was it Seth Green? I don't know. It might have been Seth Green.
That's a good guess. We're gonna have another.
He has like
trivia.
mystical powers, and someone.
We're just gonna have an all like Seth Green trivia episode.
Seth Green movies that had arcades in them would probably be enough trivia questions for a whole episode.
Right.
So
75 question trivia.
Hey guys, here's a trivia question that it's gonna be really tough. What beer company famously sponsored an arcade game?
No. Yeah, B Tapper, I think. Budweiser.
Would it be King of Beers? Budweiser.
The ice cold beer company.
That's, and of course, take a random person off the street, they're just gonna randomly guess. They might even get it right since it's Budweiser. But yeah, true. So we will round up some more questions, come back for another episode. But it is great to have the discussion about these games because, like, obviously our second hour just kind of devolved into let's talk about games, which is my favorite thing to do in the world.
That is my favorite thing to do in the world.
So for now, though, we're signing off. The victor again was Josh.
Congratulations.
Takes it by 1 point, and for now and forever, he won the very first. He is the champion of Free Play Trivia.
Congratulations,
and we're signing off.
Someone make a meme.
We'll see y'all next time.